And we are live. As soon as I figure out, I tell you, technical difficulty all the time for me. And we are live. What's going on? Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube live. It is your man, Coach Rowe. Today is Saturday. Ooh, you don't know how long it's been since I've said that on a First Row topic. It is Saturday. I'd like to welcome you to the First Row. And this Saturday, we have a special. This 2 years, it's been about 2 years since we've had one. A special intersation with you today for Intersations on adversely empowered. I want to say empowered adversity. I don't know why I want to do that, but it's actually adversely empowered. This is with Tisha Nestor. Can you welcome her? Hello, Tisha.
Hi.
How are you?
Good. It's an awesome way to start the weekend, Billy. I get to have this awesome conversation with you, so I'm excited.
It is. And I'm actually excited because there's so much going on with you right now in the sense of you launching your website, getting your story out there. I feel like you're just walking in this space right now that has so much in store for you and brings so much more of you into the world. So thank you for having this intersation with me. Really quick, for those of you who do not know what an intersation is, what's going on, Brother Bruce? Brother Bruce knows what an intersation is. Good morning, Chinda. But for those of you who do not know what an intersation is, it's a word that I created. It's a space where interview meets conversation. So it's not quite an interview and it's not quite a conversation, but it's a hybrid of both. And where they originated from were conversations that I was having with friends, family, coworkers, acquaintances, strangers on the street, where often we stay at this high level and we stay at the surface of conversation. But the conversations that I was fortunate to have actually went beyond the surface and became very deep conversations. They were conversations I was learning information in. They were conversations that I was growing in. They were conversations that the other party was growing in. So that's where Intersations was birthed. I think I launched the concept somewhere in 2019. And this is like one of my favorite First Row contents that I was sad that I lost access to for a while. But I think I might start sprinkling these in a little bit. So Tisha, let me tell you, I'm excited that you are the first welcome back Intersation. Let's get it.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Yes. So what I would like to do is give you an opportunity to introduce yourself and a little bit about your brand, Wholeheartedly Tish.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've kind of been on this journey. I've always had this, I don't know if I would say obsession, but just such a interest in the human experience, and probably just because of my personal experience and journey. So I love this topic of adversity because I know we all experience it, some of us more than others, and, little bit of everything. But one of the things that I started doing actually a few years ago is started getting more intentional about this passion, and actually started hosting, developing content and doing trainings for work when the pandemic hit. And I thought, I'm feeling this certain way. I've incredible stress, going through a lot of anxiety and just change and just all of the things we experienced at that time, going virtual. But I started really talking about the topics of using tools that I created and learned through my journey, resilience topics, just even how we can manage our stress. But it's kind of evolved into this journey, and something I wanted to do in a bigger scale was get my story really out there and do this blog. And so it feels good it's all new. In the new stages, I'm just going with my intuition on this and starting this path and seeing where it takes me. I'm super excited about it and have already received just some great comments and feedback just of the helpfulness of it. And so it just makes me happy to be stepping into my passion and purpose. So that's kind of a nutshell, I guess.
It's fascinating because what you're talking about, honestly, is the same inception of First Row. Feeling like you have a story, feeling like you want to put yourself out there, and realizing and understanding the vulnerabilities that come with that. And then as you're out there, kind of building the ship as you're on the water. That is literally the origin story of First Row. And I
I
honestly
love
feel like
it.
that's the origin story for a lot of great things that come into our life as we go out there with this unsurety, and we just kind of allow the flow to happen rather than feel like we have to force things. So that's amazing. So
Yeah.
we're going to jump into this topic, adversely empowered. And I always like to start a show off with, what does the topic mean to the person who's going to be doing the majority of the speaking? And today will be you, who is my day off. So,
I got
um, for you, what does that topic, adversely empowered, mean to you, and how does it connect with your story?
you know, somehow, even at a very young age, I would say even as I look back into my life, and an article that I just published, I kind of talk, though, I walk through early childhood through my entire life. And to be honest, it took me a very long time to write it, because it's different when you're coming from a place of your own story and experiences, and especially from a place of pain that you've experienced in your life. But when I think about it, though, adversely empowered, I feel like it's having the mindset, or knowing that anything is possible. Like, we can't control adversity. It's going to happen. It's inevitable. But I think that there's that idea of just like, there's this possibility out there, and of outcome, and the way that I react to it, the way that, and ultimately, sometimes you don't know how to respond, but it is about our response, and in the moment, in the thick of it, it's just hard. But I think in this, it's really realizing, hey, this is actually my story that I'm creating, ultimately how I'm writing that and how I'm going to be successful, and really preparing me for that next hurdle that's going to come, because it's inevitable, right?
Right.
But I think really just that idea that really it does shape us and who we are, our character, our identity. But I feel like just not, you know, it's going to hit us, but just the knowing of like, hey, you know what, I can choose how I respond to it. But that's how I would really look at that and define it.
The power of choice that we have over our adversities, that we're honestly, I feel like we're obligated. I don't typically use that word, but that we're obligated to face. At some point,
Mhm.
you can turn and go the other way, and you'll run into a different adversity. You can turn and go the other way, a different way, and you'll run into a different adversity. So it's an obligation. Eventually, it's inevitable that we are going to face adversity.
Yeah.
Really quick, I'm going to try to keep the chat coming in during the show.
Okay.
Chinda says, yes, absolutely. We build as we go and grow. Being vulnerable is growth. Absolutely. And then
I love it.
we have some people that are coming in. We have Bruce that's in this morning. We have Chinda that's in this morning. We have Jennifer that's in this morning. We also have Casual, who said he wasn't going to be up and he would catch the replay, but he's up. I'm with that. Get your growth on. And then we also have Walter. Hey, what's going on, Walter? I'm so glad that you could join us.
Walter!
I actually had the pleasure of meeting Walter, working on a project for brief. We were like connected for all of, I don't know, like 30 minutes, and then we disconnected because we don't live in the same state.
He's amazing. Me too. And he's such a special soul.
Yeah, he is an amazing individual. I do enjoy it. And then it looks like Chinda agrees with you, says the power of choice sums it all up. Absolutely. So for me, when I think about this topic of adversely empowered, is I think about how, and it's very similar to the topic that we had on Cheryl, Michelle, and Billy Rowe Live this week, how we can take the challenges that we are faced with and transform them into fuel, instead of just looking
True.
at them as these roadblocks or these hurdles or these ceilings to the things that we're trying to do in life. We can actually take them, learn from them, and then use those lessons to overcome them, and then also use those lessons at a future date when we experience things that are very similar to them. And I say this because we were having a conversation yesterday during the test. I still try to grasp this word, but they said maladaptive coping systems or
Yes.
coping skills, not taking the negative and then using them or abusing them, the abnormal use of them when we're experiencing adversity that's familiar, but taking the positive things that we can actually use to help us get through things or transition through things a lot more smoothly. So with that, let's move on. The next question I'd like to talk to you about is really defining, as we begin to unpack this conversation. How do you define adversity? What does adversity look like to you?
Yeah. You know, I see it actually as resilience. You know, because you're going to go through the, you know, there, what do we say? It's like misfortune and but really I feel like adversity, I see it as an opportunity for resilience and learning and growth. But also, just as I had said before, just how this is, we all have a unique story, but this is really what's shaping us throughout our life. And I really feel like this is something that, you know, just in our response and how we respond to it is just so powerful. But I mean, there's so many different kinds of adversity that we experience in our lives, right? Sometimes it's deeper, like, so it could be trauma experiences, but there can be financial, relationships, physical, just, you know, any type of disability. But really, as you have those challenges, depending on the time frame that you're experiencing those, I really feel like you're learning and growing. But if you can step into that and feel it, experience it, there really is beauty on the other side of that, something that's beautiful. It's almost like, I read a book once, but it was talking about kind of our opportunity in life, where it's about birth and then you go through a death, essentially, you know, in this process that you're going through, and then this rebirth.
Right.
It's a powerful and beautiful and just amazing, because there's this new you that's going to be born from each of these things that occur in our lives. So I know that's kind of a lot. Kind of
No,
how I view it, but it's just kind of just the way I see it.
that makes perfect sense, actually, when you, especially the ending portion of growth, birth. I'm sorry, not growth, birth and death, and then this
Mhm.
rebirth process that takes place. Um, Adversity really is, when I think about it, it's the workout. It's the workout for life.
Mhm.
It's what keeps us from falling into mental, sometimes physical, sometimes emotional atrophy, where
Mhm.
if you don't have something that creates pressure or creates challenge, then you're just selling along and you're truly not using the gifts that you have as an
Mhm.
individual. So when you say that there's that birth, we start off in childhood. They say crawl, walk, run. You start off
Mhm.
and you start off crawling, and then that develops your muscles to get you strong enough to stand. And then you're now able to stand, but you're not able to run. So now you're walking. And then you go to a place where you're now finally strong enough to actually take off and run. And then at some point, it begins to work its way backwards as we age.
Yeah,
So
I
it,
know. You hit
it's
those points too.
yeah, it's very much a part of the journey. One of the things that I was thinking, especially when you said traumas, was the micro traumas that we sometimes do not acknowledge. And you know, if you don't acknowledge one micro trauma, it's probably not going to be the end of the world. But as you don't acknowledge 10, 20, 40,
I
100,
know.
all of a sudden it piles up, and it's almost like a bone that is multiple stress fractures in it. Eventually it's brittle and it can't support the weight that you have to place onto it, and it'll just snap. You don't have to do anything. It will just break on its own because
Mhm.
it's under that pressure. And so that, not only the traumas in our life, but the micro traumas, I feel like, from adversity also have the
Yeah.
ability, because if you do allow micro traumas like in bone to heal, your bone becomes stronger. This is why we have growth spurts. When you're growing and that bone is breaking and stretching and breaking and stretching and reforming through that process, it's a painful process, but you're getting taller, you're getting stronger, you're becoming faster, you're more agile. Like those are the benefits of addressing each and every micro trauma that you can address. The other thing that I got from what you were saying was that really it's a game of chance, but it's also a game of choice, our adversities. They act almost like a sculptor's, I don't know what the tool is called, but like a sculptor's knife. They are constantly whittling and shaving and smoothing who we are, and helping to develop who we are. So I love, I'm telling you, we're going to have such a great conversation today.
It's
I'm so
already this
excited.
early on, right?
So I have had the wonderful experience of reading your first blog, and in that you talk about some of your first adversities that you've experienced. But I'm only one person, and I would love for you to be able to elaborate on when the first time you experienced adversity at a young age, and what that was like, what your reaction was to it, and how do you know that you've come to learn from it?
Yeah. Well, I know. I think, gosh, even just little is a little one, and as far back as I can even remember. But I probably am thinking back to even 6 years old. My parents had divorced. My mom was doing her best, single mom. But I remember bits and pieces of things. But there was just a specific moment where she was out. I grew up as a child of an addict, an alcoholic mother, and in that family disease. But at that point is when I felt the memory of some of this starting to kick in. And she was out at the bar late one night, and I was kind of the one in charge. But just I remember the fear that I felt, just being home alone with my sibling and kind of trying to just feel safe, and where's our hiding place and what's going to happen, but as this evolved though, then this was a journey from about age 7 to 10 of there's a lot of instability, but then ended up in foster care for a little bit of time, luckily not long, because I had an uncle take us in, and then just living with him and his wife and children, and then another uncle as well, so a couple different relatives. And then at age 10, moved back with my mom. But during that time, though, there's a lot I feel like that happened in that period, because there's some things like a trauma of, you feel the chaos and the instability, but you're trying to just figure things out. You don't necessarily know at the time what you are feeling and experiencing, or how to cope with that. But also, I just remembered feeling like the abandonment. Just really just not understanding, and waiting for visits from my mom or to talk to her. Or I remember sleeping and hearing a conversation happening in the kitchen and thinking, oh, my mom's here, and getting excited and running out, and it wasn't my mom. But I just remember that period. And so there's been some, it's been a lot throughout my life, but I just remember that kind of being the first moment. But did not knowing really realize how much that did affect me throughout my life, and later on some things that surfaced even discovering a few years ago from that.
Okay. And so how do you think that experience kind of sculpted your perspective on adversity? Because 6 years old is a very young age to like be trying to tackle adversity. Like it's like, dude,
Yeah.
I don't have the skills for this. What are you talking about, adversity?
No, I guess I could probably go forward to probably teenager. I made a really tough decision to run away, actually. That was really hard, but I think when I really realized what I was experiencing and what I had gone through, things just a lot of emotional challenges, mental health issues. I feel grateful that I'm here today, but I wasn't in a good place at that time, and I needed help, and made the call. And I think that's one of the biggest things, is realizing, asking for help. But from that I learned, I started developing my own intuitively somehow throughout my life. When I really look back, though, intuitively, I was finding ways and developing tools that could help me cope with these situations. So tuning into my emotions and what I was feeling, being like that being my alarm system, but then also just tell me if I'm safe, or I could really sense my surroundings and be highly intuitive. But I also feel like I learned as a teenager, I knew I felt like when I left, I all I wanted was to be happy and create a life that I wanted. I wanted a better life, and just I think that will and desire to just really be happy, but I also didn't want to be a statistic. And likely sometimes for children in a child of adversity and trauma, there's stats, you can end up as an addict, you can, or early death, certain things. But I just knew intuitively I needed to kind of just take control of my life. And so I started tuning into my thoughts. And so when I'd have really tough days, I would actually just write down like how I was feeling, how it was affecting my body, and then would start to at least develop an awareness of what I was feeling and trying to break that down more, which was a really useful tool. But then also being able to, from that point, start to really call out, hey, now is this really true? Things I would tell myself, and when I would doubt or just self-sabotage, but is this true? Is this a lie? But throughout my life, I just started noticing as it evolved, kind of why I get into mindfulness, because I realized that wasn't heard of then, or even throughout a lot of life until later, I realized, oh, this is something I was doing and practicing, but not knowing it at the time.
Right. So it's kind of instinctively that you were kind of
Yeah.
making solutions that were helping soothe the experience that you were in.
Mhm.
I do want to talk a little bit more about the fight or flight, because sometimes people think that only children who are defiant or troublemakers are the children that run away.
True.
There's an assumption, there's a stigma around why a child runs away, that, oh, you didn't like the rules and so you ran away. However, a
Mhm.
lot of people don't understand the household that you are in, and in many times the chaos that is in that household, that is like, I can't be under this pressure, and
Mhm.
I know I can't be under this pressure, so I have to escape. And so I kind of want to kind of dive in or dig in a little bit on that.
Mhm.
When when we feel adversity, what do you think it is about adversity that creates that fear, that triggers our fight or flight mechanism or survival skill?
That's a great question. I I think we often find, and somehow I'm grateful enough to just had listened to myself and what my needs were. And to sometimes I think as we're going through adversity and hard times, there's so much noise that we need to kind of clear out, right? But if you can really find this deep inner power that we have inside of us and listen to that, kind of like this internal compass, or just that power within, I really feel like that's a deep part of it. I just knew I was listening to myself, but I didn't know at the time, I guess, of how severe, like from the place of the emotion, from the trauma, how it impacted me, but from where I was emotionally, from my mental health, with that tremendous amount of stress too, and what that does, because how that puts us in survival. So maybe that's part of it, because you're in survival, right? And so I think when that stacks up or gets to a certain point, you really have to listen to your intuition and yourself, and take that as a guide. And for me, that's what happened.
Got it. So what pressures did you create for yourself, in the sense of, oftentimes when we experience traumas, or even reading your blog, how you kind of became the nurturer in the home for your
Mhm.
siblings. What other personalities did you adopt? Maybe because it's who you are, or maybe because it was thrusted upon you to adopt that role because that role wasn't present with an addict as a parent.
Yeah, it's very much, I was the oldest sibling in the home, and so being parentified, taking on a lot of responsibility, but I didn't get that childhood experience to be, just to be a kid. I always had that responsibility, so it definitely followed throughout my life, and built into a bigger issue throughout, even that I recognized even a couple years ago, when I can tell you when things really hit. But just, yeah, the caretaker, people pleasing, feeling like I always needed to make this difference. Like I just, also this sense of proving my worthiness. And so just the overboard of losing myself and my self-care, just all of, but also I don't know if it was just because of the survival, being busy and kind of like thinking that I had dealt with my things, but it was just always, oh, I was more not interested in myself and my things, but, oh, someone needs my help, I'm right there. And just that aspect. But for perfectionism, there was definitely challenges that I had, also just kind of hypervigilance, thinking that it was helping keep me safe, but it was this, just like just had like this mask I had on, that I put on because one of the bigger things too that I realized later too is, when you're a child of an addict, you get really good at putting a mask on for the world. You hide your feelings, you stuff them, and then it's hard to even express yourself. So that was also another challenge, but they do surface eventually,
Yeah.
but that, being able to kind of work through those, and some things that really hit hard a few years ago, that I decided to start facing these things. And but not really realizing throughout my life that those traits that had developed, and really affected me in my life.
Yeah, I think that's one of the keys of being adversely empowered is you realize at some point with our fight or flight mechanism that flight can't always be the option. We can't always run,
Mm-hmm.
because it's almost like an airplane. I was watching a video online where these guys were in the desert and the airplane was flying super low. It was a jet, actually. It wasn't an airplane. It was a jet that was flying extremely low, and it flew over their heads. And like 2 seconds later, all the wind from behind that airplane or that jet that's flying kicks up all the dirt. And it's like, if all
Mm-hmm.
we're doing is running from our
Mm-hmm.
adversity, we are leaving a tailwind behind us that is
Mm-hmm.
tearing up the road behind us. And so at some point we have to land and say, okay, enough of running. At some point we have to say enough is enough. And
Yep.
I don't like to tell people what they have to do, but I recommend you stop running, because at the end of the day, the person you're running with is you. You're the
Mm-hmm.
person carrying all the baggage. You're the person carrying all the scars, the heartache, the heartbreak, the disappointments. You're the person carrying all those things. And at some point, honestly, running is more exhausting than fighting.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's where we eventually get to is like, I'm exhausted because I can't keep up the clip of how busy I have to stay to remain numb to all that I don't want to deal with.
Yep.
So
Exactly.
I think that that's really good that you were able to identify some of these key areas in your life where it was like, hey, while I was busy, life was good and all problems resolved. And the moment you have a moment of silence, because we have these silent moments where it might,
Yes.
maybe you wake up an hour early in the morning and now you're sitting in bed and I don't really want to get on my phone, and the brain
Yep.
start saying, okay, so you're saying I have some time to deal with this backlog
Yes.
of trauma that we haven't been addressing. I have a little bit of time. I'm going to take that. And then we wonder why we may be in tears, or why our mood changes, or why, they say you get up on the wrong side of the bed. It's because there's all these other things that we have yet to deal with that are requiring us, they're actually demanding us to deal with them. And
Mm-hmm.
in all of our running, one of the things that we typically don't do is pick up tools along the way to face the Goliath when we need to turn around. We're
Yeah.
just running. We're
Yeah.
jumping
And you don't
fences.
even
We're hitting
know,
walls.
right? You're just in autopilot. And yeah, there's something beautiful though when you do that. You don't realize what a true gift that is, even for the world, because it does allow us, like I had said, it was a big thing for me to recognize I'd had this mask. You know, people that meet me, I always hear, "Oh, I'd never know you'd been through, you're always so positive and just seem so happy." But it's heavy, and you can just, like this heavy armor, and it just kills you, right? Like when you can just get all that off and take that mask off and just step into your true authenticity, it is beautiful. And look at how much more resilient and loving you are, and how much you can give, to the world as a
Right.
whole. And it's really, truly, that's the beauty in all of that, is that's what our world really needs. It needs more of that. So sometimes it's a natural instinct to go the other way, or there could be shame involved in that, or just a society in general that, we should always be happy. And I don't know, there's something we need to talk about adversity more, and teach but what it does though is it helps give others the opportunity to see how we work through those challenges to help them. So when that time comes, that, we're teaching each other, and you can learn from that, but then also gives us an opportunity to show up for us. Because one of the hardest things for us to do is we isolate and close ourselves off, and don't typically, it takes a lot of courage to ask for help, but even just that, I mean, that's a big piece of that too, right?
Right.
That allows that. There's so much beauty just in all of that, and being able to really talk about it. We need to talk about these things more. It's just as much a part of life as there's beautiful things in life, but there's also pain.
Absolutely. And you can't avoid either one of them.
Right.
You can't get all beauty. You can't get all pain. So
Mm-hmm.
one of the things I want to bring in is from the chat. Chinda and Friends TV says, adversity allowed me to recognize my inner strengths. Absolutely. And I want to come back to that comment. And then also, I ran enough when I was younger, being chased home from school. Oh, ooh, yeah. Nobody was. I only lived 3 houses away from my school, so and people realized that Billy was a fighter, but they didn't understand why I was a fighter. I was a fighter because I grew up in a household where my parents fought, and so it's
Yeah.
like I'm
But
seeing
you're
fighting.
learning.
So I'm learning this behavior of conflict. This is conflict resolution 101, straight in the household. That's where you learn your first conflict resolution skills at. If it's yelling, if it's fighting, if it's cussing, if it's whatever, this is where you learn these first skills at. And even today, I still struggle. Like my wife, if we're like in an argument, sometimes I'll cuss. Most times I'll say, I'll cuss. And she'll be like, don't cuss at me. And for me, I'm like, I'm not cussing at you, but this is how I seen conflict. So I'm using the cursing
That's what you
as
learn.
descriptive words.
Yeah.
But for her, she's like, you're cussing at me. So it's something that I have to work on in how either A, I can only talk during a time when I don't have to use curse words to describe myself, or B, I can wait until a later time, or C, I can not talk. And then that C option becomes really comfortable. And that's really the flight. That's not the fight. That's the flight. That's running away from the conflict or running away from the adversity. And so when you talk about you're carrying this heavy armor and you've built it up because it's designed to protect you. It's designed to keep you safe. And a lot of things, especially if trauma starts at the age of 6, a lot of things that we design or concoct to protect ourselves are very childish in nature. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, when I was a kid, we called them the dirty dozens or bagging. You say your mama, I say a joke that's about your mama. And it's like
Yes.
this call and repeat game. You say something, I say something. You say something, I say something. And what it does is it teaches you to escalate, because each time I come back, I have to be better than you so that in essence, what I am doing is I'm protecting myself from getting my feelings hurt, because I say, ha, I got you,
Mhm.
and you don't have anything to come back with. And it completely disregards all the other traumas that took place in that small conversation.
Yeah, like, what's going
That,
on here?
right. So I definitely can feel when you talk about that armor, because a lot of people perceive me as this extrovert person, and in many ways I am. However, my core personality is introvert. I
Mm,
actually enjoy isolation, alone time,
mhm.
silence, quiet time, because I do a lot of thinking, I do a lot of reflection, because there's a lot in my backlog that I'm trying to clear out. There's a lot of issues behind Billy Rowe on First Row, and Billy Rowe in the workplace, and Billy
Mm,
Rowe as the father, Billy Rowe as the husband. There's a lot of backlog issues that have to be cleared out. And I only have been able to determine or find, I've only been able to find the solution that allows me to clear them out in silence and in
yeah,
isolation.
yep.
So I love that you bring that into the conversation, that sometimes being adversely empowered does require for us to go into silent places. But on the
Mhm,
other hand, I do like what you brought up earlier about, you saying your uncle adopted you, where sometimes we have to reach out and get that help.
mhm,
And it's this balancing act that we're constantly trying to bring into balance. So I
yeah,
love that. So I kind of want to shift this conversation at this point. And thank you for those who are watching live,
yeah.
contributing in the chat, or slapping your phone or your monitor or your laptop, because you're like, yeah, that's what I'm talking about. But thank you guys for joining us this morning. I'm gonna call you guys our growth club. But I want to shift this conversation into a space of solution. So
Mhm,
when I think of, again, when I was thinking about adversely empowered, I was thinking about how we shift adversity into fuel. And so how have you taken adversity and really established not only resistance but resilience within it, that would be able to create momentum to overcome that adversity?
oh, I love that, because it's just I don't I'm just such a learner, and I'm just so passionate about growth. I just feel like this is such a huge part of our growth as humans, and one of the so important, because it's a muscle you're building, right? Like, to each experience, you grow stronger from that, and you can look back. But I think one of what I found from personal experience, I think, and I might be speaking from just a person that's had a lot of grief, but I think about just acceptance, and the importance of acceptance, in general. And sometimes, you had mentioned earlier, just like just running, and we don't want to feel it. It's uncomfortable, and but if you can learn to just accept that this is just a part of our time on earth. And sometimes, depending on when you're in such a deep pain, though, and you're going through something really hard, it's natural to feel, like you're robbed and a victim in the situation, or you want to blame, or questioning everything in it. But yeah, I just really had a moment where there's a point, like, I just realized I don't want to be bitter. I'm all about love and opening my heart. I don't want to close my heart. And so sometimes, but I think just having the perspective, though, the acceptance is a huge one. But then also there's this, when you can get to the other side, or what helps you get to the other side, I think also is gratitude. Um, you probably heard me say this in many conversations. It's my favorite word. But somehow that was another thing, I think intuitively I would find good in, no matter how bad a situation was or how much the pain was, somehow just being able to find those moments. And sometimes it could be something as simple as, like, wow, I watched that sunset, or just, anything, like just a beautiful, like someone that showed up for you that day, or but just finding those moments of gratitude also, I would say would be that, and just being able to see the good there and the good in the outcome. And then it just gives you that opportunity though on the other side to go, ask yourself questions, like is my behavior or the way I'm processing this serving me well, or is it not? And what do I need to do? Just that opportunity to self-assess, because these are the times, the most beautiful moments where we can really reflect, and go deeper, right? And just really assess and then just paving the road. What does it look like? Who do I want to be moving forward? This is an opportunity for me. There's light ahead, and what's that path I want to create? But that's how I would look at that.
Got it. I think it's interesting when you talk about a few things from that. I'll go backwards. The gratitude aspect.
Mm-hmm.
It's easy when you experience either significant adversity or what I would call continuous adversity,
Mm-hmm.
to feel like that's all that there is out there, and it feels like
Mm-hmm.
you're just in this unending assault of
Yeah.
why
Yeah.
is life slapping me upside the head every 20 seconds. I just recently went through a period of deaths that were just like people in my family,
Right.
people very close to my family, were just passing away. And it was like, I remember looking up and just being like, God, can I just have like 2 weeks where nobody dies, where everybody keeps their life going?
Mm-hmm.
Can I just have that? And so I remember I was on the airplane to go to my godfather's funeral, and I was tired. I had already been at the airport numerous amounts of time in like the last month. And I was just like, I got to get my head into the space that I need to be into. And so I actually took time on Facebook to write a post about the gratefulness that I had
I
to
read that.
the means. So to have the means to
Mm-hmm.
be able to do all of the traveling that I needed to do, to
Mm-hmm.
show up and be present in the lives of the people that were still there, and give that love. Like it was a moment that allowed me to break the assault and to move out
Yep.
of that victim, woe is me, why is this happening to me?
Mm-hmm.
Because you and I are both believers of energy. So if that
Yeah.
is the mentality that I'm in, where it's woe is me, I'm the victim, please believe you're attracting more situations like that for you to experience, because
I agree.
that energy doesn't want to make a liar out of you. It's like, no, you're right. We're the victim. Hey, victim over here, go ahead, come this way, because I need
Mm-hmm.
validation for that belief.
Yeah.
And so that gratitude aspect, when you move and shift to gratitude, it breaks the assault. It breaks that mentality and moves you into a space where you can begin to come
Mm-hmm.
back up and out of that. The other
Yeah.
thing that you said was acceptance. And a lot of times we think the word acceptance means defeat. We think the word acceptance means conformity. And it doesn't necessarily mean that. It just means that you're able to see what is in front of you and you're trusting your ability to see it well. That's
Yep.
all it means. You're just seeing what's in front of you and trusting your ability to see it well.
Yep.
Doesn't mean you have to agree with it. Doesn't mean you have to accept it in the sense of, well, that's just life and that's the way it is. That's that victim mentality again.
Yeah.
It's
But just
just
be
seeing it
open.
for what it is. Be open to what it is and
And
then build
why?
accordingly.
Yeah. Like start questioning, right? Gives us that opportunity to start out, kind of digging deeper.
Oh, we have another comment I want to bring into the conversation. Loree.
Oh, the reason.
It says you can change it and look at it in a different way to change how it feels by your perspective on pain. That is actually one of the
It's
things they
powerful.
do for pain management, like physical pain management, is at some point medicine is not enough. At some point medicine doesn't work.
Mm-hmm.
And when it doesn't, they teach you how to manage that pain mentally. They teach you, hey, maybe you need
Mm-hmm.
to do this new activity that is not associated with medicine or traditional medicine. And this new activity will help dull some of that pain that you're experiencing. So I love that perspective.
Yeah,
Um,
that's beautiful.
I do want to kind of bring in from your blog one of the things, and I haven't heard you speak very much about it. You've spoken around it, but not very much about it. One of the tools that you said was very helpful to you was mindfulness. Can you kind of, for those in the live or watching via the replay, can you, number one, articulate what mindfulness is, and then kind of bring back to how that has helped you in your journey through being adversely empowered?
I love it. Yes. Yeah, I know. I think that there's sometimes different, some people don't even like the term. There's some different perceptions out there of it. Like that it actually, we look at it as it's just meditation, or some people think of it as it's a tool to make us, stop our thoughts. But it's what I found, really it's just how do you cultivate present, being present in your life, being present in all. It's such a practice because and it so much has to do with our thoughts, because our thoughts do create what we feel, and then that creates our reality. We've heard that many times, right? But really there's so much truth in that, though, because it creates this certain level of awareness where you could go, hey, I can think of times where all of a sudden I could just out of the blue just be doing my thing, and all of a sudden I'm just feeling like my heart is racing, just something's going on. But then digging into like, hey, well, what created just this total bit of just pure anxiety and discomfort, and then just being able to go back to, okay, I'm identifying this thought, and this thought is how it made me feel. But it's awareness in what's happening in your mind, what's happening in your body, what's happening in our surroundings. But I guess so I'll start with just that as a whole of my view on mindfulness, and then I can kind of tell you like what I've learned throughout my life in practicing it. But really, I feel like it's just about trying to just put yourself into being so engaged and aware in all things. So many of us are already, we practice it throughout our day, but we might not be referring to it as mindfulness. So you're just getting in the trenches of maybe an activity that you're really enjoying. You decide to go for a walk, and you're really tuning into all of your senses, right? Like I can feel the wind and the breeze hitting my face. I can, I'm looking at these beautiful colors of the flowers, or the greens and the sky, or the sunset, just taking all of it in, but just being able to get into that place and recognizing, slowing down, being able to be in that place, because the present is where you find peace. And that's not what a lot of us feel. And that's like, so my whole mission is to help others be able to do that, but then also their true essence. Because it's, once you could just really discover there's so much noise and static, and you can really just tune that out and just go within, it just really helps you with that. So, but tools, I'll go back to, really, I found journaling so helpful. I wasn't consistent with, I noticed it throughout my life. There'd be times when I was feeling really, really a deep sadness and things were hard, I would go to that. But like even getting into a habit of that regularly, it just helps give your brain a break and a brain dump, because as humans, I'm sure you've heard of this, but we've got so many thoughts running in our mind, 60,000 to 90,000 in a day, they say. And so when you're going on autopilot and you're not aware what's in my subconscious, like what is this, and this is what's creating my world, it gives you an opportunity to really dig in. So first, I think one of the first things I realized was just being aware of my thoughts, but also how it was making me feel. But then also, if I started to have things get in my way, just like beliefs, whether I'm telling myself, oh, I can't do this, or I'm not capable of this, I'm afraid of this, whatever that was, hey, I can question that and flip that script and challenge it. Mm-hmm. And so that's the other one, is I would say, what's that opposite? How am I going to flip that is another technique. So being aware, challenging those thoughts. And then another one is a gratitude practice. And it doesn't even have, these are so simple things that you can do, right? And just little simple tools, and start somewhere. But going to, whether you're just sitting in a moment of silence and really just having thoughts about what you're grateful for at that moment. And I love hand to heart because I love to meditate. But really it just brings so much beauty and awareness and all those things, because naturally as humans, our programming is to go to the negative.
Right.
And so how do you flip that, and be able to bring that in and open your heart to things? So that would be another one. But there's different techniques and tools, things that I want to share that I've learned in my life journey, so many different ways. So it's not just about meditation, although meditation's changed, and breath work has really been a game changer for me, especially helping me heal my trauma, and get into some deeper work. So it's been an evolution of, journaling, thoughts, challenge from that, gratitude, but then boom, this big shift the last year, as a matter of fact, really diving into breath work and meditation, which has really transformed my life in so many ways. And it's, we all have, but I think that we all have it. It might not be for everybody. We all have our own tools within and things that we need to find that work for us. But this is just what I found has helped me tremendously. And I just want to share that with the world.
Right. No, we all have what resonates with us. And
Yeah.
for some people, it may not be breath work. For some people, it may be absolutely their number one thing. But I think you bring up a great point that there's an evolution that takes place in the aspect of, you have to start somewhere. At some point, at some point, you have to stop running, because either you're just going to get extremely tired or you're going to get overran by adversity. But then you have to start somewhere. And if it is just, with 60 to 90,000 thoughts in a day, and I'm probably like 180,000 in a day.
I'm up there with you, Billy. That's one of my problems.
Like, I just want to not think right now. But when you have so many thoughts in a day, and it might be something as simple as saying, okay, if I'm going to have 90,000 thoughts, at least one of them has to be positive.
Yes.
Like, it might be just that small, because when we do stop to think, it's like, I'm grateful that I have electricity in my house today. And then all of a sudden it's like, what the electricity bill's due, and then you have this bill due, and that, the mortgage is coming up, and all these other things start rolling in. But you just start with the small things. It's no different than going to the gym. I can't start off bench pressing 500 pounds. Like, I'm going to be crushed by that. Yes. So I have to start off with maybe the bar and get stronger with the bar. And when the bar starts feeling light, when one gratitude thought starts feeling light, add 2, add 3, add 4. And so it's this gradual evolution. And then when gratitude feels like, man, I really got this gratitude thing down, add something new. Yes. Change up your workout. I don't work out my chest every day in the gym, and that's all I'm working out, and the rest of my body is just out of shape. Hey, it's leg day. Hey, it's abs day. Hey, it's shoulders. Hey, it's back. Like, there's this evolution in order to continue the growth trajectory. So I love what you're saying. And we're actually almost coming up on time. I told you an hour goes by really fast.
I know. I can't believe it.
So I have one more question, or 2 more questions that I want to ask you. The first question being that it's inevitable, because we face so much adversity in our lives that at some point adversity will knock us down. Adversity will catch us. And in those moments, what advice would you give on how we can reset and pick ourselves up and continue to either engage with overcoming adversity or continuing to engage with moving and forging forward?
No, that's beautiful. I know we've almost touched this throughout this conversation, but it's about, I really feel like it's whatever it is that's coming on and you're feeling, just to sit with it and let it come, and give yourself grace, and it's about self-compassion, and don't judge that and what's coming, but being able to really take those experiences and fidget, but just to be able to feel it, I think is just huge. Because once you can get to that place and recognize, okay, it's here, we're going to have good days, we're going to have those bad days, but there's so much beauty on the other side that that we get when we can come out of that. And I think that's naturally that's just the hardest part, being able to do that and to feel it. That's when we do get into some not so good coping mechanisms, right? And
Right.
where we can get into addictions and, or other patterns. And, and many of us are just operating. I mean, they say statistically 70% of people are running in too high of a level of stress and in survival. We just don't realize, even just from our day to day and the busyness. And sometimes we get addicted to the busy, so it's just slowing down, just being able to really, just ride that wave. And then so much beauty is on the other side of that. And like you said, then you do start to feel that gratitude, but so much that you're stepping into power within you. It's an incredible feeling and such a beautiful thing on the other side.
I love it. I love the grace aspect. That's the first time we mentioned, or
Yeah,
you've mentioned,
it's huge.
we've mentioned in this conversation, grace. It is to be able to understand your own humanity is it's extremely challenging. But to be able to understand that, hey, this is your first time going through these things. This is your first experience. Every experience is your first experience with it. Doesn't matter if you've had it before. This new experience is a new experience, and it's your first experience with it. And so being able to offer up yourself grace is like a buffer between I'm learning, I'm growing. I don't have to beat myself up.
No.
Like that grace. And as you or as I have learned through my interactions with grace for myself, I forgive myself faster. And I also am becoming better at letting go of grudges that I hold towards others.
Yeah, I agree.
I realize that I'm making mistakes and I want to be forgiven. It doesn't mean I don't get upset. It doesn't mean that I'm infallible
You're
or
gonna do it.
forgiving myself or forgiving others.
Yeah.
But I'm learning, like, even if my wife and I have an argument, whereas we used to like maybe not talk for 2 days, now it's like a half a day we don't talk, which is
That's great though. And it happens. It's part of life, right?
right. It's a part of that process. So grace is super powerful in the aspect of being able to regroup if you have been knocked off of your feet. Hey, you fell down. Well, you can either lay down and stay down and cry about that, or you can get up and say, hey, sometimes you trip over your own 2 feet, and that's just what it is. That's the risk of walking. But that's the risk of running. I'm willing to take that risk because I want to grow. So I love that. And the last thing I will ask you before we wrap for the day is, over all of this conversation that we've had on Intersations today, if you were to pull the top 3 tools from this conversation that really resonated with you, what would those tools be?
Yeah. I love that. Kind of, if you've already been, had this kind of as a practice, that as far as how you manage your adversity, great, but just starting with those simple things. One thing that I've learned in my journey, and I talked about meditation and breath work and how powerful that is, but even just trying, because we have so many distractions and there's so, with our technology and so much information coming at us in a day, and we're doing so many things at once constantly, but even just a challenge to say, hey, start daily sitting for 5 minutes in just silence with yourself, and just as a starting point, closing your eyes, pay close attention and notice your breath, and start to really notice, hey, what are some thoughts coming in, or how am I feeling? But just start somewhere with that. I think that would be a great one. And just a reminder, I mentioned slowing down, but I've learned through some deeper lessons I'm getting through this breathwork practice that when we're in survival and this high level of stress that we experience, our heart is out of coherence, our brain, the way our body is functioning. And one of the things I would recommend is to learn. Breathwork helps us get into coherence because our heart is beating at such a fast rhythm. And so we don't even know that that's happening even during our sleep. we think even that's helping us slow down, but your body is operating in this mode. So there's breathwork techniques you can look into. So whether it's a coherence, rhythmic, even one like a relaxation, Wim Hof, that's something you could look into, but that's another recommendation I would have. But I'm going to be sharing a lot of this on, it's just starting out, but these are the things that I want to start talking about and sharing with the world, because it's been so life-changing for me, but I think it could really help so many people. I mean, the health benefits, overall wellness, but just the quality of life and getting you into that place of inner peace is just such a beautiful thing. And that's what I want to do and help others through.
Okay, nice. And so that brings up my last question. Where can people find you at?
Yeah, so it's easy, just wholeheartedlytish.com. You've got there. And then I have Instagram, Wholeheartedly Tish, as well as TikTok. So find me. And then I can also put in here, I can put my email if you'd like to email me as well.
Well, I have the Wholeheartedly Tish up right here, just in case you wonder what that beautiful site looks like. All that relaxing water.
Yeah, actually my email is right on the site too. So, and subscribe. Soon I'll have a newsletter coming through. So
wonderful.
See where this goes.
Oh, we
I'm
will
excited
see where
for
it
it.
goes. Great things will come, I'm positive. There are a couple of things that I have pulled out from the conversation that I want to bring in really quickly before we wrap. But the thing that stood out to me right off the bat was tune into your emotions and really accept that those emotions are valid. A lot of times during adversity, we try to invalidate our emotions and say, well, that's not how I really feel, and try to move ourselves to a space that we are not authentically feeling in the moment. Your emotions on how you feel are very strong indicators on whether you're going in the right direction or the wrong direction. I've always used my emotions as a compass. The thing is every time I try to invalidate my emotions, that hurt my feelings, and I don't want to feel like that hurt my feelings. So now I got to be aggressive, or now I have to be, distant, or kind of like, shut down. Those were not the emotions that I was feeling. I was just trying to move myself to a space that I wasn't emotionally at.
Yeah.
So understand when you're encountering adversity that your emotions that you're feeling are valid. It doesn't mean you have to act on them, but it does acknowledging them and accepting them. That word acceptance was really powerful for me today. Acknowledging and accepting them it is okay to do in an adverse process or in an adverse experience. Tool number 2 is acceptance is not defeat. It's courage. It's being able to look your challenge, that adversity in the face and say, I see you. Okay. I see you. I'm coming for you. But I see you. And to trust that you see it well. That is what acceptance truly is you are accepting your ability, your instinct, your insight, your intelligence to identify a challenge and identify it well. It is not defeat to accept that. That takes courage to do so. And then the last thing is, and this was at the very beginning, was there are allies that can help. When I hear your story about being in foster care, running away, being in foster care, and then being adopted by your uncle, there's allies that are out there that are willing to help us. But if we shut down and only go introvert and don't express or ask or give information that we need help, it's really hard for those allies to identify you. And I think we both have this similar personality that people assume that life has been so wonderful for us all the time. Never a bad day, always sunshine and rainbows. But that's not the lives that we lived. But that's the mask that we wore for a very long time. And so when you take that mask off and say, hey, look, I need help, then your allies show up. They don't know to show up if you haven't requested help. So those are the tools that I've taken.
Beautiful. Summing that up beautifully. Oh, thank you. This has been so wonderful. And thanks for everyone that made it today.
It has been a wonderful, wonderful conversation. I told you it would be a wonderful conversation.
Yeah. Always with you, Billy.
Intersations are like one of my favorite content pieces from 1stWroe, because they are just organic, authentic conversation. And it's the questions that I feel like sometimes in conversation that we want to ask, but we
Yeah.
don't ask. We don't ask because we don't want to pry. We don't want to dig. We don't want to be nosy. But having and wanting a desire to learn and having and wanting a desire to grow is not nosiness.
No.
It's an exceptional characteristic to have. And
I
so
agree.
being able to embrace that power and embrace that in conversation, not just in a virtual environment, but in the conversations that you may have going forward today, the people who are watching live, the conversations that you may have going forward today, be more intentional about the things that you want to learn and how you want to grow. I promise you'll have your own little personal intersations. You're like, man, Billy Rowe and Tish, they set me off right today. So really quick, if you want more content like this, the next time you'll be able to see 1stWroe content will be this Tuesday. It will be at 4 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That is the Carolyn Michelle and Billy Rowe live show. Those conversations they're hilarious in and of themselves, but they are fun, just like this conversation that we had today. And then you'll also be able to catch me next week live on the 1stWroe at Wednesday at, I almost said 4 p.m. Wednesday at 6:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 9:30 Eastern Standard Time for the Wednesday Word. And then you'll always be able to catch my co-host, Carolyn Michelle, on the Grind to Find podcast, anywhere you listen to and consume podcasts at 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern on Fridays. Other than that, if you have not, because one of the tools that Tish was talking about today was mindfulness. If you have not gotten your copy of hire your passion, fire your job, hire your passion, head over to 1stWroe.com. You can download the very first chapter of the book. Start reading it. There's some tools in there and some exercises on mindfulness. So I'm a fan of mindfulness too. So if you have not, go ahead and get that. And also, if you have not gotten the journal, get the journal. That was one of the things that you also brought up today, Tish, was journaling being a part of your process. It helps you extrapolate, I think is the right word, the lessons from life. So that's what I have for you guys today. Tish, it's been a wonderful, wonderful time with you. I cannot wait to see all the wonderful things you're going to do on wholeheartedlytish.com. But until the next time, if you like this video, share it. If you share this video, like it. We're always happy to engage with you in the comments and in the chat. And if you're watching via the replay, we'll engage with you for the first 7 days that the chat is up or the video is up. Then we move on to new content. But other than that, until the next time, one love, peace, and God bless. Thanks for sitting on the 1stWroe.